What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Sunday, September 26th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Oh, and good news, guys. Make sure to stay tuned to the very end of this video because we removed the box that was popping up and blocking the lineup. So now you can see a full lineup using these picks that we made in this video if you stay to the very end. Okay, guys, we have an 8-game slate today. So let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Alek Manoah with a 6% pitching advantage over the Minnesota Twins. Alek is only giving up a .488 OPS versus righties. He's facing 5 righties here tonight. There's no pitches versus the Twins yet, but the splits are great, and he's $9,600 FanDuel salary, $800 less on DraftKings, projected at 24.4 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score at least 32 fantasy points in this one. He has an ERA of 3.36. His record is 7-2 on the season, pitching an average of 92 pitches per game, averaging 33 fantasy points per game. He scored 43, 64, and 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Alek Manoah here versus the Minnesota Twins. Now I also like Lucas Giolito, and if you want to save some salary at the pitcher position and go with a high risk, high reward play, take a look at Tristan Mckenzie. So I think this pick is interesting because Mckenzie is only giving up a .590 OPS versus righties and a .532 OPS versus switch hitters. He's facing 4 righties, 3 switch hitters, and on top of that, the White Sox have only hit 5 of his last 33 pitches, so that's a 152 batting average. He's $8,000 FanDuel salary, $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 30.4 fantasy points here tonight. He has an ERA of 4.67, record is 5-7, pitching an average of 80 pitches per game, averaging 27 fantasy points per game, and he scored 4, 46, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I think he's a good high-risk, high-reward pitcher here versus the Chicago White Sox. Tristan Mckenzie. Okay, let's take a look at the first base or the catcher first base position. I like Willson Contreras with a 25% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Jake Woodford. Willson Contreras is batting 9% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .770 OPS versus righties, and Jake Woodford, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 16% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .850 OPS versus righties. Now I like this pick because Willson Contreras, he's 3 of 6 with a 2.167 OPS versus Woodford. 2 of those hits are for home runs and the other one's a double. And he's only $3,000 FanDuel salary and only $500 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites. Projected at 9.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 19, 13, and 4 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Willson Contreras here versus Jake Woodford.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching.
If you want to enter the drawing for $25 PayPal,
all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won.
And we'll send you $25 PayPal.
So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Jonathan India with a 62% batting advantage over Josh Rogers. Jonathan India, he bats a little bit better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .845 OPS versus lefties. And Josh Rogers, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 60% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .857 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus Rogers yet, and Jonathan India is $3,500 FanDuel salary, $1,900 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.6 fantasy points here tonight. He's averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 15, 6, and 6 fantasy points in his last 3 games. And Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game, 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Jonathan India here versus Josh Rogers. So I think an interesting sleeper pick here. He's super low salary on FanDuel. Take a look at Nico Horner with a 22% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Jake Woodford. Nico Horner, he's batting 6% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .679 OPS versus righties. And we know Jake Woodford pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 16% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .850 OPS versus righties. There's no at-bats versus Woodford yet, but Nico Horner is only $2,100 FanDuel salary. Now he's $1,300 more on DraftKings, projected at 8.8 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 3, and 19 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Nico Horner as a value play here versus Jake Woodford. Okay, let's take a look at the third base position. I like Yandy Diaz with a 24% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Jesus Luzardo. Yandy Diaz is batting 6% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .800 OPS versus lefties. And Jesus Luzardo, he pitches his worst ball versus righty batters, 18% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .871 OPS versus righties. Yandy Diaz is 1-for-1 with a 2 OPS versus Luzardo, and he's $3,200 FanDuel salary, only $300 more on DraftKings. So I like that DraftKings price, projected at 9.6 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 13, 13, and 3 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Yandy Diaz here versus Jesus Luzardo. Now it looks like Eugenio Suarez is in a good spot as well versus Josh Rogers. He's only $2,900 FanDuel salary, but he is $1,700 more on DraftKings. So I think Eugenio Suarez would be a decent FanDuel play.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, moving on to the shortstop position. I like Wander Franco with a 35% batting advantage over that same low salary pitcher, Jesus Luzardo. Wander Franco is batting 34% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a 1.039 OPS versus lefties, and Jesus Luzardo is giving up a .790 OPS versus switch hitters. There's no at-bats versus Luzardo yet, And Wander Franco is $3,800 FanDuel salary, $1,900 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.8 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 9, 3, and 3 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Wander Franco here versus Jesus Luzardo. Okay, moving on to the outfield position, my stud pick, home run hitter, dong of the day. I like Bryce Harper with a 44% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Max Kronick. Bryce Harper is batting 15% better versus righty pitchers, batting a 1.055 OPS versus righties, and Max Kronick, he's pitching his worst ball versus lefty batters, 28% worse than his other pitches, giving up a 1.105 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Kronick yet, and Bryce Harper is $4,500 FanDuel salary, $1,600 more on DraftKings, projected at 12.2 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 14 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's been on fire, scoring 22, 16, and 12 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Bryce Harper here versus Max Kronick. Now I also like Nick Castellanos, who's in a good spot here versus Josh Rogers. And I also like Randy Arozarena, who's in a good spot versus Jesus Luzardo. But if you want to save some salary at the outfield position, take a look at Rafael Ortega with a 41% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Jake Woodford. Rafael Ortega is batting 57% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .873 OPS versus righties, and Jake Woodford is giving up a .714 OPS versus lefties. And Rafael Ortega is 2 for 2 with a 2 OPS versus Woodford. He's only $2,600 FanDuel salary and only $400 more on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, projected at 9.8 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 6, and 3 fantasy points in his last 3 games. But he's in a good spot here tonight. The splits are good. So I like Rafael Ortega here versus Jake Woodford.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.